This morning, music icon Taylor Swift's reputation now removed from a heated Hollywood legal battle between her longtime friend Blake Lively and fellow actor Justin Baldoni. Baldoni's team now dropping a subpoena seeking to pull the superstar into the fray, saying information was voluntarily provided.
Picture this. You're a crisis PR firm, and your client just got slapped with sexual harassment allegations. Your solution? Charge an extra $30,000 because you're genuinely terrified of teenage girls with Twitter accounts. But here's the kicker. That invoice just became evidence in a legal battle so explosive that Taylor Swift got subpoenaed. A billionaire's insurance company is now suing everyone, and a federal judge just threw out a $400 million lawsuit while basically calling it frivolous. Now, I've covered Hollywood drama before, but when crisis management becomes so expensive that the billing structure itself makes headlines, you know you've entered truly uncharted territory.
Representatives for Taylor Swift have issued a blistering repudiation after the music star was subpoenaed by actor Justin Baldoni's lawyer in his tense legal battle with the It Ends With Us co-star Blake Lively. Swift's spokesperson said the subpoena is designed to create, quote, tabloid clickbait in this case.
We're talking about a workplace dispute that escalated into coordinated social media warfare, strategic celebrity friendships being weaponized, and enough legal maneuvering to keep multiple law firms busy until 2030. But here's what nobody saw coming. This whole mess would eventually reveal exactly how modern celebrity reputation battles actually work behind the scenes. And trust me, it's more sophisticated, more expensive, and infinitely more petty than you could ever imagine. Get this though, the real tea isn't just about the original drama. It's about how a simple movie promotion became a masterclass in everything that's wrong with Hollywood power dynamics, crisis management, and the weaponization of fan armies.
Justin Baldoni filed a bombshell $400 million defamation and extortion lawsuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and Taylor Swift has been dragged into it. In the complaint obtained by Page Six, Justin accuses Blake of utilizing Taylor to further assert control over the production of It Ends With Us.
Let me start with the text message that basically launched 1,000 lawsuits, because Blake Lively apparently compared herself to a dragon queen, and it's honestly iconic in the most chaotic way possible. In a message to Justin Baldoni during filming, Blake allegedly wrote, "If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons. My dragons also protect those I fight for, so really, we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you." Those dragons, according to legal documents, were supposedly Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds. And honestly, if you're going to threaten someone with celebrity backup, you could do worse than a billionaire pop star with the most devoted fan base on the planet, and Deadpool himself. But
now you see text messages in this lawsuit from Blake Lively comparing herself to the heroine of Game of Thrones, the fiercest female character we've seen in years.
Here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. This text message became central evidence in a $400 million defamation lawsuit. Baldoni's legal team used it to argue that Blake was essentially threatening him with the power of her famous friends. That's either the most expensive text message in Hollywood history or a really creative interpretation of what was probably just Blake being dramatic. And get this, the timing of this message coincides almost perfectly with when Baldoni's crisis PR team decided they needed that $30,000 Swiftie surcharge. Someone apparently took Blake's dragon metaphor very literally and started billing accordingly. But here's what makes this whole situation even more complex. Those text messages also revealed that Taylor Swift was apparently involved in creative decisions about the movie, despite her team later claiming she only licensed a song.
The $400 million case against Blake Lively is dismissed.
What? Why? Wait, what's happening?
Justin Baldoni had a massive defamation case against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist.
For?
Baldoni accused all of them of trying to ruin his career during the It Ends With Us production and tour.
Oh.
You remember this?
Nope.
Okay, then Baldoni sued the New York Times and said they published an article relying heavily on Lively's side against him without fact-checking.
The contradictions are honestly more entertaining than most Hollywood plots. Now, here's where things get really interesting, because apparently this dragon threat was taken seriously enough that it launched the most expensive legal battle in recent Hollywood history.
So let's talk about Justin Baldoni's decision to fight back against what he claims was a coordinated attack on his reputation. Because $400 million is the kind of number that suggests someone genuinely believes they've been the victim of an orchestrated destruction campaign. This wasn't just any lawsuit. This was a defamation claim that essentially accused Blake's entire Hollywood power network of conspiracy.
For those who are not in the Hollywood world, what is wrong with her taking over the film?
I've never seen it before in my 30-plus year career in Hollywood. And an executive producer is below a producer in the film world.
But here's what's absolutely concerning about the alleged tactics used against Baldoni. We're talking about taking on a director who was trying to make a meaningful film about domestic violence, using some of the most powerful people in entertainment to do it. Blake's team allegedly used her relationships with high-profile celebrities to intimidate Baldoni and seize creative control of his passion project. The lawsuit detailed how Blake allegedly weaponized her marriage to Reynolds and her friendship with Swift to essentially hold the entire production hostage to her demands. According to the filing, she leveraged these relationships to create an atmosphere where opposing her meant facing the combined wrath of Hollywood's most influential power couple and the world's biggest pop star.
Friends, let's talk about the friendship that is taking a break right now between Blake Lively, Taylor Swift.
It's the second break. This is a roller coaster.
What's happening?
So Taylor was obviously upset when she found out she was called one of Blake's dragons. And she had kind of, in this lawsuit of It Ends With Us, and she, was like, come on.
And get this, though. Baldoni's legal team was confident enough in their evidence of this alleged conspiracy that they asked for nearly $500 million in damages. That's the kind of money that suggests they had documentation of a coordinated campaign so sophisticated it warranted serious financial consequences. But here's where this gets really troubling, because apparently certain Hollywood power players believed they were so untouchable that they could orchestrate someone's professional destruction without consequences. The dismissal might have been procedural, but it doesn't change what the evidence allegedly shows about how power operates in Hollywood. The fact that Judge Lyman dismissed the case on technical grounds rather than factual ones is telling. It wasn't that Baldoni's claims were proven false, but rather that the legal system provides certain protections that make it nearly impossible to challenge powerful figures, even with evidence of coordinated attacks.
But wait, it gets even more chaotic because apparently Baldoni's own insurance company decided to sue him too.
Swift's team not responding to NBC News' latest request for comment, but a spokesperson earlier this month blasting the subpoena as an attempt to draw public interest by creating tabloid clickbait, adding Swift's involvement in It Ends With Us amounted to licensing one song for the film.
Harco National Insurance filed their own lawsuit claiming they shouldn't have to pay for any of this legal mess, which is basically the insurance equivalent of we didn't sign up for this level of chaos. The insurance company's lawsuit reveals some fascinating details about how this whole situation unfolded. According to their filing, Blake raised harassment concerns in November 2023, but Baldoni's team allegedly failed to inform the insurance company about potential claims when renewing their policy in 2024. Here's what's particularly damning about the insurance situation. Harco claims that when Wayfarer Studios renewed their policy, they were specifically asked about any known circumstances that could result in legal claims. The policy explicitly stated they wouldn't cover incidents the applicant was already aware of before the coverage inception date. And get this, the insurance company is essentially arguing that Baldoni knew about Blake's complaints and deliberately concealed them to maintain coverage. That's a kind of allegation that suggests someone was planning for legal warfare long before any lawsuits were actually filed. But here's where it gets really expensive for Baldoni. If the insurance company wins their case, he could be personally responsible for all the legal fees from multiple ongoing lawsuits. We're talking about millions of dollars in legal costs for a battle that started over workplace behavior on a movie set. The fact that his own insurance company is now actively working against him tells us everything about how badly the situation has spiraled beyond anyone's control. Now, let's dive into what's honestly the most fascinating part of this whole mess: the detailed documentation of exactly how modern crisis PR actually works. Those text messages Blake included in her lawsuit reveal a level of strategic thinking that's both impressive and slightly terrifying. According to the evidence, PR professionals working for Baldoni were literally texting each other congratulations about successfully shifting public narratives. We're talking about coordinated social media campaigns, sophisticated enough that the people running them felt comfortable bragging about their effectiveness in writing. But here's what's particularly revealing about these strategies. They were apparently targeted enough that professionals could measure their success in real time.
Spokesperson announcement saying, quote, Taylor Swift never set foot on the set of the movie. She was never involved in any of the casting, creative decisions, didn't score the film, never saw an edit, never made notes, didn't even see the movie until a few weeks after it came out because she was on tours.
These weren't just general damage control efforts. These were surgical strikes designed to shift public perception in specific, measurable ways. And get this, the August 7th email that mentioned the Swiftie surcharge wasn't just about billing. It laid out their entire strategy for managing potential backlash, including contingency plans for different levels of celebrity involvement. That's the kind of strategic planning that suggests they knew exactly how explosive this situation could become. The sophistication of these PR campaigns is honestly more impressive than most marketing strategies for actual products. We're talking about dedicated teams, real-time monitoring, strategic messaging, and enough coordination to require its own billing structure. But here's where this strategy backfired completely. By documenting their success, these PR professionals essentially created evidence of the very campaigns Blake was complaining about. They made themselves part of the story they were trying to control.
Let's talk about Ryan Reynolds' involvement in this drama, because apparently even Deadpool isn't immune to Hollywood legal warfare. Reynolds got dragged into this mess not just as Blake's husband, but as someone Baldoni's team claims was actively involved in the alleged smear campaign. According to legal documents, Reynolds attended script meetings for It Ends With Us and was allegedly part of the creative discussions that Baldoni claims Blake used to seize control of the project. That's either supportive husband behavior or strategic celebrity interference, depending on which legal team you ask. But here's what's particularly interesting about Reynolds' involvement. Baldoni's lawsuit claims he made disparaging remarks about Baldoni at various industry events, including allegedly calling him a sexual predator at a Deadpool and Wolverine screening. That's the kind of allegation that suggests this battle extended far beyond the movie set into broader industry circles. Reynolds recently addressed the situation in a Time interview, making pointed comments about operating with core values and integrity, and noting that if you're an a-hole, they're not going to help you succeed. While he didn't mention Baldoni by name, the timing and context made his meaning pretty clear. And get this, the fact that Reynolds felt comfortable making these comments suggests he believes his Hollywood status makes him untouchable, regardless of what evidence might exist about his alleged involvement in this campaign against Baldoni.
Her riding her dragon. She's the mother of dragons in Game of Thrones, and that's what Blake Lively says in a text message, that she too has her dragons, Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift. That's, again, believed to be the other person.
That's either confidence based on innocence or the kind of arrogance that comes from knowing the industry will protect its favorites. But here's what makes Reynolds' involvement particularly problematic. He brings massive industry influence and public goodwill that can be weaponized against someone like Baldoni. Taking on Reynolds means challenging someone who's protected by both his commercial success and his carefully crafted public image, making him a nearly unassailable opponent in any reputation battle. Now, let's discuss Judge Louis Lyman's decision to dismiss Baldoni's lawsuit, because while it might look like a legal victory for Blake's side, the reality is more complex than the headline suggested. This wasn't a ruling on the merits of Baldoni's claims. It was a procedural dismissal based on legal technicalities and protections. Judge Lyman's ruling essentially said that Blake's harassment complaints were legally protected speech because they were part of official legal proceedings. That's a legal protection that exists regardless of whether the complaints are actually true or false. It just means you can't be sued for making them in an official capacity. But here's what's particularly important about the judge's decision. He found that Baldoni failed to prove any false statements were made to the New York Times, other than statements in Blake's official complaint, which were privileged. That's not the same as saying Blake's statements were true. It's saying they were legally protected regardless of their accuracy. The judge also addressed the extortion claims, ruling that Baldoni failed to prove Blake's threats were actually extortion, rather than just negotiating over working conditions. But that distinction might say more about how the legal system defines extortion than it does about whether Blake's behavior was appropriate or ethical. And get this, the dismissal was based on legal technicalities rather than a factual determination that Baldoni's claims were false.
Oh, I dismissed that filing too. It's protected under fair reporting privilege, which protects news reports on legal proceedings.
Can you explain your reasoning?
Look, the alleged facts indicate that the Times reported the available evidence and reported, perhaps in a dramatized manner, what is believed to have happened. You have until June 23rd to refile some of your claims.
Wait, so what about Blake Lively's trial against Baldoni and his production company? That's in March 2026.
Attention.
Baldoni's legal team decided not to amend their claims, but that might be strategic, rather than admitting defeat. Sometimes fighting a battle you can't win legally isn't worth the additional cost and exposure. But here's what makes this dismissal particularly concerning from a broader perspective. It essentially reinforces a system where powerful figures with the right legal protections can be nearly impossible to challenge, even when there's documented evidence of potentially problematic behavior. The legal system's protections, while important, can also shield people from accountability.
Here's where things get really personal, and honestly quite sad for everyone involved, because this legal battle has apparently caused serious damage to Blake and Taylor's decade-long friendship. Now, multiple sources report that their relationship is now quote-unquote on the rocks, which might be one of the few genuinely unfortunate outcomes of this entire mess. According to reports, Swift is hurt that Blake mentioned her name in connection with Baldoni and dragged her into a legal battle she never wanted to be part of. Now, that's completely understandable. Being turned into someone else's legal weapon without your consent would strain any friendship. So scholars close to Swift claim that if she had one wish, it would be that she never met Blake, which is honestly heartbreaking considering Swift was godmother to Blake's children. Now, that's the kind of relationship damage that suggests this situation caused genuine personal pain beyond just legal and professional consequences. And get this. If Baldoni's allegations are true about Blake threatening to leak private text messages between her and Swift, that would represent a serious betrayal of trust that could absolutely destroy a friendship. Using someone's private communications as leverage in a legal battle is the kind of behavior that makes reconciliation nearly impossible. But here's what's particularly tragic about this friendship fallout. It shows how Blake's alleged tactics didn't just target Baldoni, but also caused collateral damage to her own personal relationships.
The lawsuit claims Justin was invited to Blake's New York City penthouse, where Ryan and a famous and famously close friend of the couple were present, and allegedly gushed about the direction in which Blake had taken the script with her rewrites.
Now, when your legal strategy involves threatening to expose your best friend's private communications, you've probably crossed a line that friendship can't survive. The fact that their friendship might not survive this legal battle represents one of the most significant personal costs of Blake's alleged campaign against Baldoni. Some relationships are more valuable than legal victories, and apparently, decade-long friendships with godmother status are one of them.
Let's talk about how this entire legal battle became a media spectacle that's honestly more entertaining than most scripted television. Every legal filing, every motion, and every strategic leak became front-page entertainment news, which is exactly what you'd expect when you combine celebrity drama with sophisticated PR warfare. The New York Times investigation that started this whole public battle was reportedly based on extensive documentation, including text messages, emails, and strategic communications that revealed the inner workings of modern crisis management. That's journalism that actually pulls back the curtain on how Hollywood really operates. But here's what's fascinating about the media coverage. It became part of the strategic battlefield, rather than just reporting on it. Every article, every leak, and every statement was potentially part of someone's broader PR strategy, making it nearly impossible to separate genuine journalism from strategic communication. And get this, Baldoni even sued the New York Times for $250 million over their reporting, which is essentially trying to make journalism itself prohibitively expensive. That lawsuit was also dismissed, but it shows how far this legal warfare extended beyond the original parties. The fact that legitimate news organizations became defendants in this case tells us everything about how legal strategy and media manipulation have become inseparable in modern celebrity conflicts. But here's what makes this media circus particularly significant. It's created a real-time case study of how celebrity reputation battles actually work in the social media age, complete with documentation of strategies, billing structures, and strategic communications that are usually never made public. Now let's talk about the money, because this legal battle has generated enough billable hours to fund several small countries. Between crisis PR fees, legal costs, insurance disputes, and potential damages, we're looking at expenses that probably exceed the entire budget of It Ends With Us. The $30,000 monthly PR fee that started this whole discussion now looks quaint compared to the overall cost of this legal warfare. We're talking about multiple law firms, crisis management professionals, and enough strategic consulting to make this one of the most expensive workplace disputes in Hollywood history. And get this, if Baldoni loses his insurance coverage dispute, he could be personally responsible for millions in legal fees from multiple ongoing cases. That's the kind of financial exposure that could seriously impact even a successful Hollywood career. But here's what's particularly expensive about this situation. It's not just about legal costs. We're talking about reputational damage, lost projects, canceled partnerships, and the kind of industry relationships that take decades to build and seconds to destroy. The fact that this financial fallout extends to insurance companies, PR firms,
and multiple production entities shows how expensive it can be when Hollywood workplace disputes escalate into full-scale legal warfare. And honestly, when the billing structure for crisis management becomes more newsworthy than the original crisis, you know the financial aspect of the situation has completely spiraled out of control.
So here we are, months later, with enough legal documentation to fill a small library, enough PR strategies to teach a graduate course in crisis management, and a $30,000 invoice that inadvertently documented the entire evolution of modern celebrity warfare. Luke's harassment lawsuit is still ongoing. Baldoni's $400 million countersuit has been dismissed. Taylor Swift is no longer speaking to her former best friend. And somewhere in Texas, crisis management professionals are probably reconsidering their billing strategies for potential Swiftie involvement. The real tea from this whole situation isn't just about who was right or wrong in the original workplace dispute. It's about how powerful Hollywood figures can allegedly orchestrate coordinated campaigns against directors who don't bow to their demands, using everything from celebrity friendships to fan armies to legal protections as weapons. But here's the ultimate irony. A movie about ending cycles of abuse became the center of allegations about how powerful figures can abuse the legal system, media relationships, and personal relationships to destroy someone's career when they don't get their way. That's either the most sophisticated example of projection in Hollywood history, or just proof that some people will use any available weapon when they feel challenged. And honestly, when crisis management becomes so expensive that the billing structure itself becomes evidence of the crisis, you know something has gone fundamentally wrong with how these situations are supposed to be handled. Spilling the tea, one $400 million lawsuit at a time.